Good afternoon and welcome to August's podcast. But yeah, so the first one is, what's the difference between an intermediate and advanced moves? So generally the structure of any intermediate class that you're taught is that the first two moves are what we call classic or beginner variation moves. They should be about a 5 out of 10 difficulty level. And then the third move is always much more of an advanced move, but it's still an intermediate move. It should be achievable, but will be more of a challenge for most people. So that's your general standard format of your intermediate classes. However, if we are teaching an advanced class, so for instance, last night we taught the sway neck drop. So that was definitely one for those that have been dancing a minimum of a year. And it is much more of a challenge. Some people get it, some people don't, for instance. But we can't really teach an advanced move in a normal intermediate class, because if you've got somebody coming up that's done 6 beginner classes and that's it, and all of a sudden we're throwing in something that's very, very complicated, they're never coming back. So yeah, we try and do advanced moves in certain circumstances. Obviously at weekends you can do advanced moves much more as well. Okay, so that's kind of the difference. It's much more of deeper leans. Ballroom drop, for instance, is another example. You lower the ladies right down to the floor. We don't teach aerials, of course, anymore. But if you do want to do advanced moves, then come and see the teachers. We're always happy to help. The next one, I like this one. This is a blast from the past. So when a first move cha-cha-cha is taught, what is the significance of the and? So for those that don't know, classic Latin dances like the rumba, or the rumba and the cha-cha are danced on what we call the 2. So normally we dance, so we call you out 5, 6, 7, 8, and then we normally step back on the 1. On the rumba and the cha-cha, we actually step back on the 2. So you go and step. Is the principle behind it. So, and that's because of the music when it goes and cha-cha-cha, 2, 3, cha-cha-cha. So that's the reason why we have the and in there to start with. However, when you learn quite normally, you would actually learn it on the 1, because it's actually very difficult to get the footwork to start with and also then to get the actual timing as well. So you'd normally learn it on the 1, 2, cha-cha-cha, 1, 2, cha-cha-cha, and then you can convert that once you're comfortable with the footwork to do it in the proper cha-cha or rumba timing. So that is the reason for that one. And last month I'm doing a specialist subject each month. Please do feel free if you want to have a special subject, and I'll try and incorporate them as the months go on. So the spin demo is directed at followers. What about us as leads? It's exactly the same principle. There's nothing different in that. Sometimes, if for instance we're doing a man spin, we may travel slightly more, but generally the principle is still use your arms to give yourself the momentum, get your feet as tight together as they possibly can. So nothing changes regarding a man spin or a lady spin. It's exactly the same. Okay, do feel free to put some questions up if you do have any questions that you have. I see a lot of people have joined. Welcome along to everybody. I will try and answer them as we go along. I've had some interesting questions. Please do feel free to put some funny ones. My favorite cheese, as always, is actually, I don't know what my favorite cheese is. Cheddar. Let's go for that. Thank you. Right, next one. Should I ask before I do a duck move on a follower? It's a hair thing. This is almost tongue-in-cheek. So a duck move, for those that don't know, is when you would lead your partner across and then you'd put your hand on the lady's shoulders or on the outside of the lady's arm, and then you would get them to duck underneath your arm, and then they would often flick the hair up at that point there. If the ladies haven't done duck moves before, then generally what ends up happening is you push on the back of the lady's shoulder and they just look at you and go, what did you want me to do? If a lady is familiar with it, then they might actually do the duck move properly. But it's a tricky move to do. If you haven't done it before, then do try and learn it. But it can mess the hair up. If you don't raise the elbow up enough as a man, or the ladies don't duck enough, then generally you just run your hand across the lady's hair and they spend a long time doing that. So should you ask to do it before you've done it, before you do the move? Not necessarily, just lead it well. And ladies, if you do feel pressure on the back of your shoulders or the back of your neck, then generally that's a neck duck. When you're doing a neck duck, ladies, try not to just crouch your whole body down and then stand back up. Try and actually get your chin down to your chest and then back up again. Okay, so that's what you're looking to do if you're doing a neck duck. I'll come to the question 5 in a moment. I'll do question 6. Thank you, Phil, for this one. I wish I knew the answer to this one. What effect is Brexit going to have on ceroc? There you go. That's the answer to that one. I'm not a politician, so yeah, I don't know. Hopefully nothing at all, and we'll carry on as if nothing has changed. That's the hope. Obviously, the better the economy is, the more money people have to spend. So hopefully we'll have busier classes if it goes to plan. If it doesn't, let's just keep going anyway. The next one is from Kate. Welcome, Kate. So you just joined. And this kind of leads on to our specialist subject of the month. Okay, what makes a good follow lead? What are the key points to focus on and common issues with follow lead? Can anything be done by the more experienced dancer to correct lead follow issues mid-dance? This is a bit I'll answer for you, Kate. For example, if I am being led by someone with very little tension, can I do anything to help the lead? First of all, it's quite difficult. If you're not that experienced and you're trying to give advice to somebody, then actually the experience you're giving might not actually be correct. That's I used to be in the RAF, and a phrase that we had in the RAF was a little bit of knowledge is very dangerous. And that can be quite an apt thing, really, because if you kind of think you know what you're talking about, but you're not necessarily that sure, then you could give advice which isn't necessarily correct. Kate Garrett is the lady that asked this question. She's demos for me at Bath. She's very experienced, and generally she does know what she's talking about. So as an experienced demo, I would say please feel free to give advice to whomever you're doing it with. Obviously, taxi dancers, they're trained to a certain degree. So again, you can give some good advice, okay? If you are a normal person, unless you don't know that person particularly well, then sometimes it can be quite a difficult thing to give advice. So I'd kind of restrain, or ask a teacher, or ask somebody that's in kind of an authorized position to give that advice if you wish. But yeah, feel free as a demonstrator to give advice. That's what kind of you're there for, really. Okay, so I'm going to get on to the specialist subject of the week. Unless anybody else have any other questions, then I will go on to the specialist subject of this week for the last 5 minutes or so of this podcast. Okay, and that is about lead and follow. Okay, so quite often we talk about lead and follow in dancing, but kind of what does it mean? Why do we teach certain things as we do it? Okay, so I'm going to kind of go through it on both perspectives. I'll then go on to it from a male perspective, and then also from a female perspective as well, because there used to be the phrase that if it goes wrong, it's always the man's fault, and we wondered why we had 30 ladies over every week. We now have the realization that, ladies, you're as responsible for getting your part right as the man is for getting his part right. Okay, so first of all, it's demo time, so I'm going to move the chair out of the way. I apologize, it is quite warm today, so I'm going to tilt this down a little bit. I have got the legs out, so I do apologize for that part. Okay, but first of all, we're doing the upper body. Okay, so when we're doing the upper body, what you're looking for is to always step back and have a bend in the arm. That's generally what you're looking to do. Now, the reason for that is that as a man, as a lady, what you're looking to do is give a signal to your partner. Now, that signal is not necessarily that you're talking to your partner saying, the next move I'm doing is a man spin. Okay, so you're giving a signal via feeling. Okay, and what we're looking for is we're looking for a straight line from your partner to your partner's partner, or from your partner's arm, I should say. Now, if you notice here, I've kind of got, I'll come around this way slightly so you can see, a straight line from elbow all the way through to elbow, and therefore that's the distance that the line and the signal has to go. Okay. However, if you end up with a straight arm at this point here, then the signal's actually going to go from your shoulder through to, if the other partner had a bent arm, through to their elbow. If you both end up having straight arms like this, then it's got to go from the shoulder all the way through, here's the other person, to the other shoulder. And that's effectively not going to get there in time. And it'll be a very Yankee type of lead, and that won't make it very nice indeed to follow. Okay, so that's why you're looking to do that. The other part of this, though, and actually what Kate was talking about, is if somebody's got a weak follow or a weak lead, quite often what people do as a lady is you allow your elbow to go behind your back like this, okay, which means that you've got too much play in the follow part. Likewise, if you have it all the way out in front, it ends up being like a brick wall. So you kind of want to cushion, but you always try and keep the elbow in front of the body, either as a man or as a lady. Okay, so that's the first part regarding the arm tension, what you're looking to have. Looking to have the lady's forearms in a horizontal position. Obviously, if you're a taller man with the not so tall ladies, you might have to have your arms slightly lower, because you always want the ladies to have this straight forearm horizontal down to the floor. Okay, so that's the first part on that. Now, from a male perspective, okay, let's talk about lead and follow. I talk a lot when I do my lessons about being prepared to lead, okay, and being prepared to follow from a lady's perspective. I'll come on to that in a minute. I talk a lot about a motorway system as well. So imagining that the ladies are going forwards and backwards in their straight line on the center lane of the motorway. Okay, as a man, we can be either across, I know it's reversed on the video, but go with it. Okay, either across into the fast lane, in the center lane, or in the slow lane, depending on whether you want your partner, if you're in the center lane, to stay on the spot. If you're in the slow lane, they're going to do a right side pass, If you're in the fast lane, they're going to do a left side pass. And I always try and emphasize the fact that you want to be out of the way to start with your partner. Okay, so therefore it's really clear for the ladies that they're going to lead or going to come past you. Okay, either way in which you're doing this. Even if you're doing a high first, for instance, and you step straight back, the ladies are thinking, I'm going to stay on the spot because you're directly in front of me. When you then lead them and you get out of the way, that can be quite a confusing lead. So I always try and teach, get out of the way to start with, and then it's a straight step forwards, etc., from there. Okay. Now the next part on that is about, again, being prepared to lead and making sure we're blocking the door. Okay. Dot talks about closing the gate or opening the gate. So for instance, on the exit of a high first, what we try and get the men to do is, as you come around to face, is come back in front of your partner. So again, therefore, you're directly in front, and the ladies know that they're going to stay on the spot. If you stay out of the way as you do your high first turn, okay, then ladies think, I'm going to change places and come across. If, however, you're kind of halfway house, and the ladies aren't quite sure whether they're going to stay on the spot or wander across to another side. Okay, so men, either be nice and clear, be directly in the way, or directly out of the way. That makes it nice and clear for your partner. Okay. The other thing that men do very often, I'm going to try and speed this up, we're already at 14 and a half minutes, okay, is when we very first learn to dance, is we generally use our arms to lead our partner. As you get better and better as a dancer, you'll generally use your body to lead your partner around. Now, what lots of men do, they go through this transition part of actually leading with their arms still, hoof-de-hoof, and also moving their body, and therefore they do what's called over leading, okay, and they're really strong in their lead a little bit too much. Okay, so men, ask your partner for feedback. Say, am I being too heavy a lead, or am I not quite giving it enough? Okay, if you're not giving enough, men, move your body more. If you are giving it up and you are being a bit heavy, then relax your arms as much as you can, move your body as much as you can. Okay, so that's kind of it for the men's part. Okay, the other bit for the ladies, I often talk about this, and I do apologize now, I'm going to show you my legs. Okay, but there we go. Right, so I often talk to the ladies about the fact of straightening their back leg. Now the reason for that, let me move that slightly out of the way so you can see. Okay, now the reason for that is that if as a lady, as you step back, you keep a bent back leg, then generally your weight is going to go down at the very end, and with your hand, you're going to be pulling down on the man's hands. We'll show that again. So as you step back, you're going to keep your weight bent, all your weight's on your back foot, but your legs bent, and your weight will sink down ever so slightly. However, as you step back, this is one of the big things I try and get ladies to do. If you step back and you straighten your back leg, then generally what happens is your weight will come up at the very end. Okay, keep the front foot on the floor, of course, and that will then make you a lighter follow, okay, which is a much nicer way to do it. So ladies, the best tip I've got for yourself is, rather than having a bent leg as you step back, which will make you sink down and make you feel heavy, it's nothing to do with weight, by the way, it's about how much tension you have, but rather than that, try and straighten your back leg as you step back. Okay, what that's then going to give you, and again, when I talk a lot about with individual people, is I talk a lot about what I call a figure of 8 momentum. So therefore, what we're looking for, I talk about a scaletrix track, if that helps you try and visualize this, is that as you're stepping back, is what you don't want to have is a straight line. Okay, this is our momentum, we've got a straight line, and that's the feeling that you're giving to the dance. What you're looking to have is that as you step back, you kind of want to flow each time you're stepping. So you flow, and you flow each time you step. Now that works with having a straight back leg. Men, you cushion and still have a straight leg for yourselves if you wish, men as well, okay? But ladies, from your perspective on a follow, the more you straighten your back leg and have this flowing feeling, then A, you're going to get more hip action. It's very manly then, I realized. Okay, but have more hip action at that point, but actually it will feel much nicer as a dance, okay? So there's a few bits and pieces there on lead and follow, as much as I can try and fit into the short space of time that we get. Susanna says, I come across the overlead a lot with guys. So there we go. Steve, where do you get your hair done? I have Nathan come round. He's a very good hairdresser. Used to dye it, but not anymore. I've come of age, we say. But there we go. Thank you for the lovely comment. So that gets us to the end of this month's podcast. I say we'll be available on iTunes. If you do download it, if you can put some comments on there, it always helps and all that type of stuff. It'll be available in about an hour or so on iTunes. I'm also going to try and upload all of these up onto YouTube as well, and be on the YouTube channel too. Thank you very much for listening. I hope you've had a fun time. And that was about lead and follow. Thank you very much.